What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the NeoVintage podcast. I am Jabril, and I'm here with
Steve. How you guys doing?
And for you guys who have never seen the show, we're just two guys that like to talk over the biggest stories in gaming. Now, today we kind of have an abnormal show because we have an incredible amount of news to go over. So, because of the nature of how big stories are, we're not going to have our normal loose topic at the end. So, just giving you guys a heads up with that. And before we get into the big stories, we always like to start with what we've been playing. So, Steve, what have you been playing?
All right, so I've been playing mainly two things. I keep dabbling in a few other games to get some trophies and stuff. But the main two I've been playing is Streets of Rage 4 and Gears of War Tactics.
Ah, yeah, that's a PC game too, right?
Yeah, so it will be coming to Xbox One at some point, but it was released on Game Pass for PC first. And you can buy it on Steam, full price and stuff like that. And me and tactic games are really weird. I really have to be super into them to do it. Like, I do dabble in XCOM. I'm not good at XCOM because XCOM's way more brutal. Gears is a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more simple. The story is obviously way better. It's less of that kind of... Because XCOM has, like, stories, but it's always more of, like, make your own story with your characters. Where Gears has, like, the characters, the canon universe. You know, this fits in through the numbered series and everything like that. So it helps kind of streamline it. And I don't know how this is going to... I know it's going to work on Xbox, but, like, it's super PC-oriented. Like, everything can be done with just a mouse. So, but, the graphics are really snappy. The game runs really fast. I haven't seen any major issues with it. So again, I'm still early on with that because most tactic games like that, like those levels are long. There's like 45-minute levels, so I usually only do one every once in a while. And then Streets of Rage 4, which also came to Game Pass, and it plays like the classic Streets of Rage, which is weird, but it looks so good. The music's on point. All the character designs are really nice. I thought immediately I would go to the options section and switch to the retro music, which I did for nostalgic reasons, but then I was like, the new soundtrack's actually really good. So
yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, so I switched it back and left it as is, and I'm playing through that, and I'm playing it solo, which is a little kind of hard. Like, the second level, when you're in, like, the police station, like, that boss, those police guys were rocking me. I don't know what was going on. They were just taking me out, but that's really all I've been playing. I've been enjoying them a lot, those two games. And we're in this weird kind of like quiet time, so I feel like those are kind of the perfect games to kind of jump into. What have you been up to? What have you been playing?
Yeah, so I mean, just picking up from where you left off, I've also given Streets of Rage 4 a try. It's, again, free on Game Pass for people who are subscribers there, so I jumped right into it. I'm not super deep into it. I'm only a couple stages in, but from the small amount that I've played, like, I absolutely love it. That's a fantastic game. I was apprehensive when they first announced it because we don't have the best track record with the super dormant franchises coming back with different art styles. Like, I was like, oh, great. And what was it? Double Dragon, I think? Double Dragon 4 when they came back or something like that?
Yeah, and kind of lackluster.
Yeah, so I was like, oh boy, I hope they don't... Because I love the old Streets of Rage games. I used to play, like... and I'm kind of snitching on myself a little bit here, but I used to play on the emulated versions on PSP, and I would, like, play them hours and hours as a kid. So jumping into this one, I had it pretty fresh in my mind, exactly what I was looking for, and they, delivered above and beyond. I love all the characters. You have a kind of, like, wide swath. You have two characters that I think kind of err on the more traditional side of characters you can play with, and then two newer characters. I play as the girl with the guitar. She's pretty awesome. So I really enjoy that, enjoy the character design, enjoy the art style a lot. That kind of cartoon 2D look is a real good kind of supplement instead of that kind of like pixel art. I was like, please, for the love of God, before when they announced it, I was like, don't be 2.5D. Please, don't bloodstain me. Mm-hmm. And thank God they didn't. I really like the way it looks and really like the way it plays. Other than that, I've actually been focusing. So I mentioned, I think last week, that I was playing the original Final Fantasy VII now that I beat Remake, which again, heads up, spoiler cast dropping right after this podcast. So I beat the original Final Fantasy VII. Had a phenomenal time with that. Really, really enjoyed it. Think they did a fantastic job with this port. And I want to give a shout out to the added mechanics that I mentioned last week. I was able to beat that game in just under 16 hours, which for any of you guys who know Final Fantasy games is like damn near impossible unless you're a speedrunner with the previous ones. Mm-hmm. So the fact that I got through it, and I'm by no means any kind of pro or anything like that, just with the 3 times speed mechanic, just basically cutting out that navigational slowdown it was a lifesaver, and it got me through the game and allowed me to enjoy the story kind of uninterrupted without having to backtrack and walking all slow and going up the ladders all slow. That was basically they fixed a lot of that, so it makes the game way more accessible. From a navigational standpoint, it's still difficult from a gameplay standpoint, but once you get the ATB down and you understand materia and casting, and especially coming off Final Fantasy VII Remake, you'll be alright. You'll be able to get through it. So the moment I beat Final Fantasy VII, I immediately bought Final Fantasy VIII Remastered on Switch to just continue, because I'm pretty much now on track to basically, I would like to replay all the Final Fantasy games going forward with 7 all the way up to 13. 15 I played fairly recently, so I'm not going to go into that. And 14 obviously is something different. So I kind of want to just go forward, go through 8, 9, 10, and then 12, and then 13. And then maybe I'll kind of like backtrack and replay like 4, 5, and 6 and stuff like that. So I'm kind of just trying to go through all the games. And 8 is jarring, to say the least, going from 7. I'm going to try to remain optimistic and positive about it, considering the fact that I'm only about 2.5 hours in right now. From a remaster standpoint, I think it's really impressive what they were able to do with the models and how pretty they made the game, considering it's pretty much just as old, if not a little bit younger than Final Fantasy VII, and how much they've cleaned it up is really impressive. Other than that, I'm not really liking anything else about it, to be honest. But again, I'm giving it a shot. I'm in it for the long haul. I bought the game. I'm going to beat the game. So I'll speak more definitively once I go through it all the way. I know people have their thoughts about 8. Some people love it. A lot of people don't. I'm trying to go into it with a really open mind. Because, again, like, I understand that they went for something different there. The whole junctioning, I don't know how much you've played of 8, but they have like a whole different system in terms of like equipping materia and summons and stuff like that with the whole junctioning mechanic. And you have like the GF and the magic kind of casting thing. It's a peculiar system, and it's weird how much it's not tied to XP. It's kind of just like the basically materials that you get from battles and you find around the world, and how you junction that to different characters and which stats you increase is kind of what makes you better in battles, not so much the leveling system, because everything scales. So that's an interesting way to go about things, and the story as of right now is not really resonating with me too well. But again, I want to keep an open mind. But as of right now, 7, big thumbs up. 8, for right now, massive thumbs down. But I'm gonna keep giving it a shot.
Yep. At least after you beat 8, you have 9. So
absolutely, it rebounds immediately, and then we go into 10, and that is mixed, to say the least, for me. So it kind of goes back and forth with me for Final Fantasies. But again, I guess we can get right into the big story, which is The Last of Us leaks.
That's it.
Now, I want to give a caveat before we get into that. We will not be getting into the specifics as to what the leaks were. We're going to get into the story kind of around it. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, and unfortunately I had it spoiled for me. Steve, you had it spoiled for you, right?
Yeah, I was not even looking for it, and someone just like slapped me with a piece, and I was just like, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
It was everywhere. It was a nightmare.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do that to nobody. So if you are worried about like Last of Us 2 spoilers, you don't have to worry. We're not going over that. We're just more so going over the controversy around it. So basically, earlier last week, The Last of Us Part 2 had a lot of its narrative leaked online ahead of its launch date. Since the leak, it was rumored for a while that the source was a former kind of disgruntled Naughty Dog employee that was mad about like payment discrepancies and stuff like that. But following an investigation by Sony, it seems that this is actually not the case. In a statement to GameIndustry.biz, Sony confirmed that it identified the primary culprits for the leak and that they are not affiliated with either Sony or Naughty Dog. And I've actually seen some interesting tweets from Jason Schreier, which apparently the rumor goes, or it's more of a substantiated rumor at this point, that they found some vulnerabilities in an older Naughty Dog title, which has yet to be released what that title was. But they found some vulnerabilities in the coding of an older Naughty Dog title that I guess gave them some kind of access to the servers. So they just released a lot of the information. Now, I think it's kind of tough to cover the motivations possibly of these hackers without giving away a lot of the controversy around the content of the leaks. But what is your thought about this story?
So immediately when I saw that these leaks were going around, and yeah, the first attached story before anybody knew that night was, it was a disgruntled Naughty Dog employee who was mad about payment or treatment and stuff like that. I'm like, I feel like ever since like last year, every company's been kind of being hit with like crunch and the disgruntled employees and the issues, and for most people they kind of cleared the confusion up pretty quick. And Neil Druckmann was the one who confronted, because this is not the first time Naughty Dog's been kind of accused of crunch. I've never heard abuse really, but more of like crunch time and forced to be working and stuff like that. Yeah. You don't crank out a game like Red Dead Redemption. You don't crank a game out like The Last of Us without crunch. Now, I don't ever think it's like forced crunch. I think people are super passionate about this game and they're working hard. And Neil Druckmann, who is higher up in there, he's there grinding too. Like, I know game directors have something different to do. It's not like he's out vacationing somewhere and he left his team to be there. So it's a it's a teamwork thing. It's the whole team that gets it. So I thought it was really, really, if going off the original rumor that it was a disgruntled employee, and I'm sure it's them trying to get back at the company and the higher ups, you were screwing over, in this scenario, all your people that you worked with for years and years, people who were passionate about The Last of Us and everything they wanted to do, everything they wanted to bring to the table. You were now just backstabbing all those people, which was a horrible thing to do. Also, you were committing career suicide in my aspect, because they were going to find you no matter what. If you were a disgruntled employee, let's say, Sony, Naughty Dog, they had their lawyers quick on retainer for this situation, and they were going to find you, and you were never going to get a job again, which is why I didn't believe really it was a Naughty Dog employee, because it's not easy to get into the game business, especially on the developer aspect and team writing and stuff like that. So, once you're kind of in that field, people leave from one team to another team to another team, and that's kind of normal, inside hiring and stuff like that. So for you to be a Naughty Dog employee, especially Naughty Dog back, first party studio at Sony, who has a good track record, for you to be able to put these leaks out and then think you would be able to get hired again would have been crazy. And it's just super disrespectful for all your colleagues and employees and friends that you made during this project. Now, we do see that isn't the case, and yeah, most of the rumors, most of the stories now, it was some people who found like a backdoor entrance into their server, pulled random things off, and posted them. So they're gonna get their Sony's gonna see them in court, because that's just something horrible to do. I don't know really what they were expecting to do it, because at no point were they like holding Naughty Dog hostage or asking for something. They kind of just started throwing this all over, I think, Reddit or something like that. So I think it was a horrible thing to do, a stupid thing to do. I know in this day and age it's hard to usually protect leaks for certain people, just those certain games that just happens. I think it's just a really horrible thing to do. I felt for Naughty Dog, Neil Druckmann, and all those people we kind of know, because they want to tell their story the way they want to tell it. Like, sure, story aspects came out, and the journey to these story aspects is what really the game's going to be about. But the fact that like so many people are now kind of jaded, aren't going in with an open mind to your project, something you've been working on for 5+ years, I think it's really horrible, and that sucks. And I feel for Naughty Dog for that aspect. I'm still going to support them. I'm still going to get that game day one and play it, and I'm probably going to love it. But it's horrible that right before the launch, this is what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a peculiar thing, because, again, I was kind of paying attention to this entire story. And one thing, I don't know what there is to be gained by these hackers doing this, really. I mean, ultimately, leak or not, this game is going to sell incredibly large. A lot of people are going to really love it, despite some of the narrative choices that some people take massive disagreements with. The only people that they're really hurting are just developers who, this is their job, this is what they're passionate about, and they're just, trying to do the best thing that they can do. And again, if you have problems with the narrative, that's something to take up with the writers. But you're hurting dozens of developers in this process that are just trying to make a great engine, make a great running game, beautiful game, really push the tech, and you're just hurting them for no reason. And it's interesting just seeing that contingent of the game industry basically reject a lot of what Naughty Dog has done all these years because they disagree with some of the choices they made for this newer one. Not to mention, first off, we haven't even seen this game. So, yeah, okay, you see some cutscenes, you read some synopsises of different, story beats, and you take issue with that. So, okay, no, F this game forever, F Naughty Dog forever, they're done. For me, personally, and I guess I can only speak for myself, we're talking about the people, we're talking decades in now, who have not missed. They've given us, Uncharted. They've given us the original Last of Us. I think they deserve the benefit of the doubt. And I trust them to make the decisions to tell an amazing story. And the idea that, okay, you get some percentage of the experience leaked to you, and that's enough to basically, shut down this forever, and I want nothing to do with this, it is ridiculous. And not to mention the whole idea, they're like, oh, because of this, Naughty Dog is done. Nobody cares about this game anymore. You just killed your game, blah, blah, blah. Bro, 95% of the people who are going to buy this game don't even know this story exists. So you played yourself. You're probably going to, at the very best for you, you're going to experience some significant fine. At the very worst, you could see some jail time over what? Disgruntling 5% of the fan base. The other 95% will never know and see your leaks. Like, it just seems like a waste of time on their end and a waste of resources on their end to try to screw over a developer that, for all intents and purposes, has delivered like amazing stuff for the game industry. I don't know why you chose this specific developer to take issue with. Listen, somebody hacks EA, I'm not cool with it, but I get it. Listen, I understand. People hate them. But Naughty Dog? I just, what have they done to elicit this response out of you is peculiar. And again, let me put a little precursor there. I am by no means okay with any kind of hacks in any kind of way. That's unacceptable across the board. But however, I will understand certain circumstances more than others. And this just seems like a peculiar choice to make. And my heart goes out to all the developers and writers and different, execs and people who work at Naughty Dog and Sony who have been affected by these leaks. And lo and behold, with the next story, this game is coming out soon. And it's going to do incredibly. And it's going to basically spit in the face of all these stupid hackers and all the people who are releasing these leaks, thinking that they're going to be able to affect the bottom line. Newsflash, you're not. The little incel crowd of people who are going to get mad at all this stuff, you don't affect the bottom line. You are not a majority of this game industry, and you're not really going to do anything. So,
yeah, exactly. So to, I guess, lighten the mood of that, again, our thoughts out to Naughty Dog and everyone on the team working for that and Sony. But some good news is, according to the PlayStation blog, The Last of Us 2 will arrive on June 19th. Ghost of Tsushima has now been pushed into July. Now, some people are saying it was like a reactionary move to the leaks. Now they're like, well, now we have to get The Last of Us. I don't think so, because they were able to get like everything snapped really quick. Like the PSN store was updated, Last of Us, because Last of Us, remember, was taken off indefinitely on the PSN store. People were getting their pre-orders refunded, which Sony never does. They never. Once you pre-order, they're usually pretty quick to lock you in on that.
Yeah.
So whether it was connected to the leaks or not, all we know is now we are going to have a great summer, because we get The Last of Us right in June, right around the corner. Only really a month delay, because it was supposed to come out in May.
Yeah, and a little bit over a month, yeah.
Yeah, and Ghost of Tsushima, it's, a little push. I do think it's weird that it wasn't reversed. They didn't leave Ghost of Tsushima in place and then put The Last of Us later. But I know, like, remember you were saying, you were like, nah, it's probably both going to be pushed. Like, you kind of assumed they would both be pushed.
Yeah.
So that's great. we're going to have a good summer. The games are going to be great. I have no doubt in these two companies and these two games. So at least we have, I think, because they're practically a month apart, that's more than enough time for me to probably get through The Last of Us. Because Ghost of Tsushima is probably going to be that game I want to take more time with, where, like, The Last of Us, it's all about, Last of Us is a little bit more linear, going to be story-based, where Ghost is going to be probably a little bit more open section. I'm going to want to play the combat more, get good at it before I can really get into it. Yeah. So I think I do understand this the layout, and I think it's going to be great. I can't wait for these two titles.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited how close they are. I was actually really surprised. The only thing that confused me, other than making me really happy how close they are, is the fact, that they canceled the pre-orders. It's strange to make that decision. When they canceled everything, I'm like, okay, so they might be punting this far off to basically just essentially delay it a month. Seems like a peculiar choice to make. I mean, again, the original release date was what, mid-May, if I'm not mistaken, May 17th or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it's coming out, now June 19th. That's a very little bit over a month delay. To cancel pre-orders and all that's a peculiar choice. So them keeping Last of Us before Ghost of Tsushima and pushing Ghost of Tsushima shows that I guess they really do have a roadmap kind of set in place. And they're not really interested in playing around with release orders and leapfrogging other things and kind of moving the timetable. If anything, everything just shifts down. And if Last of Us is going to be pushed out, Ghost of Tsushima is going to be pushed out. But the interval is exactly the same, pretty much. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty dope. A month to get through Last of Us Part 2, I think, is pretty fair. Again, it's a linear story-based thing, and I know they're expanding it a little bit more, but by no means I think that they've ever communicated that there's going to be some massive open world experience. Yeah. So it doesn't look like that much of a departure from the original. So I think a month is more than fair, especially if you dedicate a decent amount of time on the weekends, you could still get through it in time if that's just the main game you're playing. And it doesn't look like anything really else is going to be out around that time to compete and draw your attention away from it, at least as of right now. And Ghost of Tsushima, July 17th, nothing really pops up after that point until like September with Cyberpunk. So you're going to have pretty much the rest of the summer to dedicate to Ghost of Tsushima and explore that world and get lost in that world. So I think that this is a perfect timetable, especially even for like a multi-platform gamer like us. There's nothing really to draw our attention away from things. So everything gets its time to release, to breathe, to give us a chance to enjoy it, and then move on to the next title. So this is a fantastic situation. And if anything, the only dead zone we're living in is pretty much right now. So yeah, that makes me really excited for the future of Sony and the future of the game industry in general.
Yeah, I think it's all really coming back into the role of things. And once Ghost comes, it looks like it. Like you're saying, Sony does have a roadmap. It looks like the PS5 stuff is going to start rolling soon. I think that's why these games are coming out at that time. That's why they didn't push it to the fall, is because that roadmap is probably pretty set in stone, and I think PS5, that stuff is what's also kind of constricting it just a little bit.
Absolutely.
All right, so from good news to, I don't know, bland news. Last week we talked about how Stadia was going to have their Stadia Connect, and I watched the Stadia Connect, and there was nothing there. There was nothing there. And before I get into the actual news that came up, I would like to say, so Google Stadia, for everyone who already knows, is Google's streaming game services. They didn't stream this. They put a premiere on it, and then they just dumped the video on YouTube. Yeah. They didn't even stream their big kind of... Anyway, I just thought that was very ironic, that they didn't even want to stream, because they put it like they were going to stream something, and then when the time hit, the video was just dumped there.
Yeah, so, no live premiere either, because you know how YouTube does live premieres? No, they kind of just put it up.
It was so awkward. That was so funny. So Google hosted a new Stadia Connect live stream that revealed a variety of new titles coming to its video game services. The big title like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, because even though that's on everything else already, like iPhones and Androids and everywhere, Google Stadia, I didn't know didn't have it. Which was available immediately on there. Other major titles like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order come out in the fall when we're all getting our new tech, our new games and stuff like that. You can play a year-old game on Stadia. Madden, FIFA will also come out at some point in the winter, probably coinciding with the new releases. Project Octopath Traveler was announced, which was a Nintendo and Steam exclusive, because it's been on Steam for a while. So it was weird that they were really amping it up, like it hasn't left Switch for any reason. Yeah, it was weird. And then some other small games: Zombie Army 4, Rock of Ages 3, Wave Break, Ember, some weird Crata. That's the Fortnite looking game, right?
Yeah, it's a creator one. Yeah, it looks exactly like Fortnite. It's so weird.
When I saw it, I was like, "Oh,
I don't know how they're getting away with it."
I looked at it, and I was like,
exactly like it.
I was like, "Oh, Stadia's getting Fortnite," and then it's like, no, it's not. And then like they're creating tools, and the way the things are dropping from the sky, I'm like, this looks like every Fortnite commercial I've ever seen.
I thought it was a Fortnite mode, like a new Fortnite mode that they're going to be like, hey, try out this new Fortnite mode that's exclusive to Stadia, or at least a timed exclusive to Stadia. I'm like, oh, Fortnite's a massive game. That's a good get for them. And then it turns out to be some other game. I'm like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, that would have been a good idea. As much as I'm not really into Fortnite anymore, putting, Fortnite's still huge. So that's where you would have gotten a little bit of people wanting it. So that's really all that came through the Stadia Connect. They also spent about like 3 minutes having random people, quote unquote, say how much they loved playing Stadia and how much Stadia worked, which was terrible. Terrible.
Talk about overcompensation.
Oh my goodness. So in like wrap up, because there's not too much to say about this. Stadia's still just struggling along there. This was a blog post that they just some reason recorded. They some reason had people just record those random people saying how good Stadia worked. They didn't show Stadia working, which was an aspect. These people were like outside their houses and just kind of just talking like, yeah, I love Stadia. There's no updates. There's no this. I'm like, at no point did they ever have like anyone from Microsoft or anyone from there come out and be like, don't worry guys, the PlayStation 4 just works. It's great. They don't spend any time. We know the system works. It's because it's not testing boundaries. It's just so awkward that Stadia went amongst this. They also kind of hyped this up like it was very direct or like Nintendo Directs or PlayStation State of Plays, and Microsoft, who just comes out of nowhere and just dump a bunch of information on you. They kind of led this up like this is what this was going to be. And in the time when everyone's kind of at home able to really watch these things, you got to give us something to watch. There was nothing there. I wasted my, whatever it was, 14 minutes to see nothing. To see games that are, people have done playing are coming a year later. Jedi Fallen Order, great game. Love it. I still dabble in it every once in a while when I get that Star Wars feel. But it'll be out a year after it's released everywhere, which is super weird. I just don't understand who's in charge of the Stadia messaging, because it is all over the place and it's just bad. This was really just a boring, quote unquote, video conference.
Yeah, I mean, I always try to be positive about Stadia in the way that I want Stadia to succeed. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, I guess you can make the argument, I don't want them to succeed that much because I don't have the service. But as someone who's not in that ecosystem, I would like to see it succeed, because I think generally having another force like Google in the game industry to kind of push this tech forward and give more people getting interested in gaming, especially people who are kind of locked behind that hardware thing and they don't want to necessarily buy a console or buy a gaming PC, this kind of opens it up for them. And if they're able to deliver that, I think that's a great thing. But man, like I try to be positive and I watch these things and I'm like, I don't find anything that remarkable here. Again, it's old stuff here. Now, I would like to say there's some other stuff that weren't included in this live stream of some big games coming in the fall that are also going to be coming to Stadia. I believe the new Assassin's Creed, for example, will be coming to Stadia, and we'll get into that later. And I think that's worth mentioning. But yeah, specifically from this presentation, there's some good stuff here. I'm not going to completely crap on them. Again, as you mentioned, Fallen Order, amazing game. Having it come this fall, basically a year out from when it originally came out, when next gen's going to be coming out, not necessarily the look that I recommend them going for. Octopath Traveler, phenomenal game, so I think that's a good get for them. Mm-hmm. Again, yeah, it was you could have already played that on PC and Switch. But hey, them beating out at least the consoles, I think that's cool for them. That's something. Madden and FIFA is pretty big. That's a big contingent of the game industry. That's something that's frequently overlooked by a lot of the hardcore types in quotations.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize how many people play those games, and a lot of people don't realize they like to chalk it up to kind of the quote unquote like casual crowd. But I'm telling you, once you leave the United States, FIFA is different. And if you could basically give them the reason, like, hey, you want to play one of the biggest games in the world without having to have a console, I think that's a big value proposition. But again, I think you also bump into the issues where it's like, hey, outside the US, you got a lot of places that don't have good internet infrastructure. That's just a reality of things. Especially when you look at the places where FIFA is the biggest, which is some places in Europe and some places in South America and some places in Africa, they're not known for this amazing Wi-Fi. So they're going to need to figure out some stuff if they really want to supply and demand and meet that perfect equilibrium. Wavebreak looks pretty awesome. Zombie Army 4, not really my cup of tea. Rock of Ages 3, I suppose there's some kind of fan base out there for that. Yeah. Get Packed was interesting. I swear to God, there has to be other moving games. Am I tripping or...
No, so there's
multiple others, right?
There's Moving On.
Yeah, that's on Game Pass now too, so I saw that one and everybody's been talking about it.
There's one on Switch, which I don't remember what it's called.
And this is a third one, right?
And this is a third one. I believe because there's one by the creators, I believe, of Overcooked. I think
it looked like Overcooked, yeah.
So they did one of them. I don't know which one. Then there's the one on Game Pass, and then there's Get Packed, Moving On, and then there's some other one. I believe there's another one. I could be wrong, but it's just they all have that super similar art style, and it's just like the mess of like running around, which is weird. But
it's a weird choice. Again, like when you had the Battle Royale craze and everybody trying to get their feet wet in that and drop their version of it. Okay, that's a massive game, style. But multiple developers moving towards the moving arcade sim is a weird choice that I would have never predicted. So I don't know what that's all about. Mm-hmm. But again, yeah, hey, more games for Stadia people to be able to play, I think is generally a positive thing.
Yeah.
But again, if they're trying to make that jump and really give Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo a run for their money and kind of dominate that streaming space, they need to do more than this. This is not going to cut it. They need day one versions of major AAA experiences or major pulls from exclusives. Like, if you want Stadia to latch on, hey, be the first one to take a real Nintendo exclusive and put it on your platform. That is what it takes. Mm-hmm. Stuff like that.
Fight for it.
Yeah. Day one, be there with that Stadia. The Stadia version of Horizon, for example. That's the kind of stuff they need to be doing. Big moves. But again, I just don't think Crata is going to cut it. I just don't know if any... And not to mention...
Yeah.
All the quote-unquote Stadia exclusives they're talking about, I think, for the most part, are all timed exclusives, if I'm not mistaken. They're all first-on-Stadia type situations, which, okay, is cool. There's something there offered for your service that gives you an ever-so-slight leg up on other ones. But again, if you're talking about a timed exclusive and no true Stadia exclusives, again, that's not a good look for a brand-new platform if you're really trying to not only break into the game industry, but stay in the game industry and be kind of an industry staple, especially going into next gen. You need to give people a reason. And again, I went over this last week. You need to increase your value proposition. And yet again, I feel like they've shown a reason why. I wouldn't say they're not cut out for the game industry, but I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of what it takes to really break into the industry. And as of right now, they've given me no better value proposition than the Ouya did in 2013. So, yeah.
Yeah. I just think Stadia is also in this spot where it's like some of these announcements would be better if their service was working. You can't get Stadia on your phone is a big one with people. You can't get it if you don't have their Google Pixel phone.
Yeah. Oh, that's not on iOS yet, right? Too.
No, it's not on iOS and it's not on most Android devices. It has to be the Pixel, which is weird. So in a perfect world, yeah, I would love to be able to play Jedi Fallen Order, bring my save anywhere I go, from my TV to my computer to my phone. And I know there's lots of issues where it'll be super late when Stadia comes to iOS. But until these other features that you still have promised come to fruition, you're not going to be there. And they're still doing this weird tongue-in-cheek, like, hiding info. Like you're saying, they acted like these games were exclusive, but it's like first on Stadia. Does that mean 2 weeks, a month? Some of these, I don't see any of these games that were like, you have to play this right here, right now. Most of these games where it's like, well, if you want to play it, you'll play it. If you want to play that moving game, well, there's 2 other ones out right now.
And this, if anything, and sorry to interrupt, but this shows me that they're not paying attention. And the reason I say this is we were in this exact same position with Microsoft not too long ago. Do you remember when they did their E3 presentation and they had these first on Xbox exclusive and they were playing around with the jargon all weird and everybody universally in the game industry being like, no, that's not it. No, these are not exclusives. And the fact that now, years later at this point, they make the exact same mistake tells me, yeah, they're not paying attention. They're not listening. They're not doing their homework in the game industry. We've already taught developers and publishers this lesson. It's like, listen, if it's not on an exclusive, don't try to market it like it is. Because again, you're misinforming people who will be like, oh, okay, this game is only on here. Let me jump and make sure I get this console. And it's like, wait a minute, this is on another console. And again, I'm by no means a fanboy, and I only want exclusives on this one console. But there is a financial reality to having exclusives. And yes. I just feel like they're not misinforming the public because, again, they're making it clear it's first on Stadia. But that kind of nomenclature of first on blank exclusive is just not something that resonates with the average person. They made it clear with Microsoft, and now years later they're making the same mistake. And again, they're just showing that they're not paying attention. People over and over again have expressed the fact that it's like, where are the reasons to be on Stadia over other places? And they have yet to deliver on that promise. And again, we're talking this Stadia has been out for a bit now. And you can only have the excuse of like, okay, well, it's only the first year. It's only been a couple months. Give them a chance. Who comes out of the gate swinging that hard? Okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. But now we're reaching the point where you guys have been out for some time now. Mm-hmm. You can't say that like we're some kind of small indie dev. We don't have the resources to deliver. Give us some time. This is Google. You do not get bigger than Google. It's Google, Amazon. Like there's only so many of these massive companies. You guys got the resources.
Exactly.
I don't know what the slowdown is. You guys have the relationships. You have the throw money at a wall if you need to. Throw a couple million at a developer and be like, hey, make something for Stadia and only Stadia. There's no reason to make this, have this slow drip feed progression. Like I just don't understand what they're doing here. But again, I want them to succeed. Not so much for Google because I don't have Google shares, so I don't really give a crap whether they do good or not. But I hope they do good for all the people who have put their hard-earned money into the Stadia ecosystem and who really believe in this. And I want, for their sake, for them to get their money's worth out of this. I never want to see anybody fail because I know how hard a lot of these developers and a lot of these coders and a lot of these people who work at Google work on this service to deliver a great experience to the best of their ability. Mm-hmm. And it's up to the customer the salespeople and the execs to make those connections worthwhile to basically make this whole system succeed. And so I just hope for all the people involved who have put in tireless amounts of work hours and money into this ecosystem for it to succeed. And I would hate to see it fail and abandoned, after a few years. I think that would be a mighty shame. Not to mention, I think it's a bad look for Google, and I think it's a bad look for the streaming games as a concept in general. And again, I know Project xCloud is delivering an amazing experience as well. But as of right now, Xbox is involved in a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. And so when you think of Xbox, you're not thinking of necessarily game streaming. But when you go to Stadia, they're kind of the first guys, other than kind of the NVIDIA streaming games initiative that came out some time ago. They're the first ones in the modern game ecosystems to be solely going for the game streaming, no installs, no extra hardware type system. And I think that's a good idea, and I would hate for them to kind of tarnish that idea because of a botched execution,
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you said it perfectly.
All right, so I guess we can move on to the next big story, and this is kind of a follow-up from a previous story. So last week, WWE confirmed that there was going to be no WWE 2K game. So this one would have been 2K21. Today, 2K Games revealed, and today as of this story being released, 2K Games revealed why that is, and we also took the opportunity to announce a new WWE game called WWE 2K Battlegrounds, which is basically an arcade-style brawler. And they released a statement. They said, we are applying what we've learned to the next WWE 2K simulation with a renewed focus on quality and fun, 2K says in a press release. As a part of that commitment, we are extending the production timeline and will not be releasing a WWE 2K simulation game in fiscal year 2021. So there's a lot to unpack there, but basically, to sum it all up, they're saying, listen, there's not going to be a 2021 game, but we're going to put a lot of our focus onto the 2022 game to make sure it doesn't fall short like 2K20 did. And then also they announced 2K Battlegrounds, which again is a campier, more fun arcade-style game, which they've done something like this before with the All-Stars game. And it looks kind of like their version of like when they did the NBA Playgrounds games, which was kind of like an NBA Jam arcade fun style game, which I think for a contingent of the audience is an awesome thing to do. I don't know how it plays in the broader ecosystem, if this will be okay in place of a 2K21 game. I don't know. This is not my forte. I don't really play these games. But I think them delivering something a little different is pretty awesome. It looked weird to me. Like, the art style was really weird to me. It's not something I'm particularly that interested in. But I'm not going to crap all over it, because I think for some people, this is going to be an awesome thing for them, and I don't want to crap over experience that might be fun for a contingent of people. What do you think about this? Is this something you're interested in?
So like we said last week, I really don't play the WWE games anymore. This is something we all pretty much guessed, that there was no going to be WWE 2K21. That they were going to kind of push all the resources to next year, so it'd be 2K22 will be the real big comeback. And I guessed that there'd be an arcadey kind of spin-off, and that's weird that, almost exactly like I get. It's funny because what I pictured in my head is with this, like, kind of big head, doofy looking wrestlers. And as soon as I saw, I think it was like The Rock and John Cena, and someone gets thrown into an alligator, and the alligator like bites and shakes them. Obviously this game is not for me. I have no intention on playing it. But I think if it's priced properly and it's kind of there for fun nonsense, I think it's okay. It's not going to be the placeholder, obviously, because these WWE 2K sims are like sports games where there's people like that's the game they buy every year. They like making their character, running through all the story and whatever you need to do. But I think it's wise of them to accept that, like, listen, the developer that was making our games is no longer with us. We got this new team who wasn't ready to take on a project this size. They released a very lackluster game. You guys hated it. It was practically broken. I mean, we all remember seeing those glitches. Yeah, for sure. Oh my, I don't think I've ever seen a game that broken. And they're like, listen, we don't want that again. So we're going to take a year off. Here's a small little snack, which is the Battlegrounds. And then we'll come back, hopefully, stronger, swinging with a really good wrestling simulator game. So it's good news. It's good news for the most aspect, unless for people who were like dying for another WWE game this year, in the aspect of the ones that have been coming. I guess it's sad for them because they're not getting it. I also don't think they were probably on the edge of their seat because they were so disappointed. They're probably more excited. They're like, we're going to take another year to really polish this game, to make the graphics look way better, and it'll also be releasing on the new hardware. So by this time, by the time that releases, PS5s and Xbox Series will be in the wild, be easier to get. You can maybe start doing some bundles, and it just looks better for them in every aspect.
Yeah, no game I think has ever been hurt from more time to develop for. And when you have like a mainline series like this, you got to get it right. There's too much banking on it in terms of financial. There's too much attached to that name for you guys to botch it up. And especially with a new team, I don't think that team's going anywhere. So you guys better figure it out, and you better figure it out fast. Because if this is what you guys are going to be working on, you only get so many chances to mess it up before your bottom line is really impacted. Not to mention the original team who used to develop it, they're working on their own game. And people are paying attention to that game. And if that game comes out and really hits, that can be pretty rough for the 2K franchise. So I think take your time, release 2K22 or whatever, or 2K21. Make sure that really hits, and hopefully we can have a good experience with that. But again, I'm speaking from a person who doesn't really play these games. Who knows? That arcade game, Battlegrounds, could be a fun game. It could be a high frame rate, fun game, a million different wrestlers. It could be fun in the same way that you have fun with maybe a Lego type game, where you don't take it too seriously. It's kind of just like a whatever experience you could imagine, you could do it in there. You want to play as any wrestler from any era, you can do that. Who knows? And so I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt in that one, because I think if they're pretty big teams working on these games, if they put their resources towards an arcade game, they might be able to, release something pretty fun. And I just am not going to let obtuse art style necessarily dissuade me from thinking it's going to do well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because like we said, NBA Jams, Playgrounds, those games are fun because people go in expecting, crazy dunks from crazy sides of the courts and all these kind of radical things and out of the ordinary things. So, and it's funny because WWE, which with their characters and the music and the entrances and costumes, fits that universe. So
Yeah.
I think, if you go extra, then that's better. If you, like you said, give me a huge cast of like old wrestlers, then you're hitting me with my nostalgic feels, and I'll be like, you know what? Yeah, let me guide this game just so I can throw things all over, throw people into canyons and stuff like that.
Yeah, not to mention, some of my favorite sports games of all time are not like the hardcore sims. You mentioned already NBA Jam, and I'm also thinking games like Mario Strikers and stuff like that, which are not like pure sports sims, but were really fun. There was like a Sega tennis game that I really enjoyed too as well.
Yeah.
So again, like I think this is kind of tapping into a different fan base in many ways. And I think in many ways, if they market this right, and for example, if this has like a good Switch presence, I think this could have more mainstream success than the regular sim games as just kind of like a fun party game where it's like, oh, hey, if you want to play as like Kane from the 90s and punch John Cena in the face while Goldberg jumps off the ceiling. Like, I think they can maybe deliver on that, and that could be a real fun experience. So I'm gonna give it a chance, if anything.
Yeah, I'll definitely keep an eye on it because you never know when you find a game extra fun. All right, so going to the next story, some Final Fantasy VII Remake updates. And mainly it's because the director wants to keep developing smaller chunks of the game at a fast pace. So it's kind of a longer, quick thing, so I'll read it very quickly. Final Fantasy VII Remake's co-director, Tetsuya Nomura, has said that he would like to deliver the next part of the Final Fantasy Remake story quickly, and to do so would require focusing on smaller portion of the overall plot. The quote comes from an interview with Final Fantasy VII Remake Ultimania, a guide and lore book now available in Japan. The quotes were shared online, IGN translated, and stuff like that. So pretty much they've come to the point where they're saying they have a rough idea on what's next. It's not completed yet, but it's impossible to talk about how many pieces this game's going to be. And I think there's still a lot of translation issues here and game plan issues. I still, in my gut, I feel like this game is not going to be more than a trilogy at this pace. I do understand them wanting to keep releasing this a little bit quicker because they don't want big gaps, because then people are going to start caring less and less. And Final Fantasy VII needs to stay relevant, and it always will be relevant with the fan base and the lore and everything like that. But with them also speaking on how they don't want to change the story too much, they're not rewriting this. They are adding sections that fill out the game a little bit better and fill out characters better. I think they do have a game plan. I think some of this stuff was kind of just to calm people down, because Final Fantasy VII Part 2, whatever they call it, it's not going to come out next year. You're probably looking at a 2 to 3 year gap. They want to deliver it faster, but you got to realize at some point it's going to transition to new hardware. They got to make sure it works right, and there's all these other little things that haven't really clicked yet. And again, that's why they were kind of saying they don't know how many parts this is going to be. He doesn't know how many, how much time is going to be in between these games. Generally, I'm okay with kind of waiting. I go in expecting, with Square Enix now, I go expecting the longest waits between games and between titles, as long as the next part is good and is a bigger chunk. Because I will get more into it when we do the spoiler cast, but Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 1, or whatever you want to call it, did start dragging in certain sections and did start feeling kind of fluffed up, when they definitely could have done more story aspects and gotten a little bit further into the game. And I think I kind of see why they did that in certain aspects. But what do you think? Are you okay with Final Fantasy coming out faster but with smaller parts?
Yeah, well, okay. The thing is, and it's hard to get into my full thoughts without getting into like the full spoilers, which we'll obviously do on the spoiler cast. Again, I will direct you guys to there if you want to get our full thoughts on this game. But basically what I'll say is I'm of two minds. I understand from like a marketing and release standpoint where this, I think it'd be strange to have any more than a trilogy for this. When you start getting into Final Fantasy VII Remake 5, that's going to look kind of crazy. Especially considering the fact that they're not explicitly marketing this as Episode 1, Episode 2, Episode 3. They're not doing that. Mm-hmm. However, from a narrative structure, and I won't get into it too much here, the pace they're going at, especially as me, I just played the original Final Fantasy VII, so I know how much is there. The pace they're going at right now, and how much they expanded on this Midgar portion of it, I couldn't see anything less than 5 or 6 parts to cover everything. The only way I see they do this is either they switch up the pacing, or they straight up skip chunks of the game. And I think there's obviously issues with both of that. They've already set a standard with this first remake of how much they're expanding on the characters and the different worlds you go into, and the pacing is all different and the dialogue is all different. But they have the same, general narrative. So it seems like, if anything, they're taking the existing narrative and just expanding it. And how they do that in a trilogy with the sheer amount, and I don't think this is a spoiler, Remake is only covering, me being liberal about it, 20% of the original game, maybe?
Yeah, it does about the first 5 hours. Roughly.
Yeah, and again, it depends on how much you choose to go into the side quests in the original. Mm-hmm. But at the very most, you're talking about not even a quarter of the original game. How they do that in 2 or 3 more parts, I have no clue. So I understand from a financial reality, there's no way they can do a dev cycle as long as the first remake took, because again, we wouldn't see the entirety of this game in 15, 20 years, literally. I'm not even joking there. So obviously they need to find a way to get this out faster. Not to mention, all the assets in the worlds are created. They just need to, they got the characters. Yeah, they need to model some of the characters that don't pop up in the remake part 1. So there's still work for them to do, and I could see them having kind of 2 to 3 year turnarounds. There's no way they can do the 4 to 5 year thing. This game would never finish, literally.
Yeah.
It'd be like a Versus 13 thing, where it's by the time you get to the last part, is it even Final Fantasy 7 anymore? It'd be a complete mess. And there's financial realities where Square Enix is listen, we need to make money on this, and burning through 15 years is going to ultimately cost us how much manpower, how much to pay for this staff to keep them on deck. You're going to have developer overturn by that point, where it's realistically 15 years from now, how many people from the original team are going to be around? Just keeping it real.
Yeah.
So again, yeah, honestly, to be completely honest, I don't see how they do this. I don't know how they're going to do this, and Remake the original is so fantastic that now I don't know how they do this even more. I'm more skeptical about their ability to deliver this, because again, it's such at a high quality that I don't know how you make the entire Final Fantasy VII game like this. Not to mention, and I'm not going to spoil anything here, 7 Remake is not even actually just a remake of the original portion of the Midgar portion of the original 7. This is actually the Midgar portion of 7 spliced in with stuff that comes out from supplementary material from Advent Children and Crisis Core, if you really want to be honest.
Yes.
And I'm not going to go into specific what that means, but anybody who's experienced this whole thing, they're taking aspects from late game 7 and supplementary material and splicing that into the original, section of 7. So how they do this, I have no clue. I have faith in them to deliver a prime quality, experience, but I do not have faith in them to deliver it in a timely manner. So again, I'm curious to see how they do this, but I am absolutely thrown aloof how they're able to deliver this at this level of quality.
Yeah, again, well, if they're at that point, we have to do a more wait and see, because they did take their time stretching out some of the parts, like we said in this early Midgard section, with filling it with, like you said, some parts of Crisis Core and some parts of other there's some characters that only ever appeared in one-off mangas that never left Japan. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but Leslie, he's for most people he's a new character. He's actually not. But again, these are little things that they started to put in that do stretch out the game. And at some point, the game does have to start wrapping up and concluding. So you can't drag this story on for so long when so many of us know what the story is. So you're gonna have to reach a point where they're gonna have to make some decisions. And I think if they looked at a trilogy section, if they looked at it from the get-go as a trilogy, they want to split it up, it'd make more sense. But we'll have to wait until they start releasing more information on what Part 2 will be.
Yeah, all right. So I guess we can get into the next big story that is probably the story I'm personally most excited for.
Yeah.
This is something it's felt like I've been waiting for this for forever. Ubisoft finally revealed the next entry in their Assassin's Creed franchise. The subtitle for this one is called Valhalla, and this time we're following Vikings, and it's taking place in the Norse setting. Now, this is literally a perfect storm for me. Now, I'm a newer Assassin's Creed fan. I jumped in with Odyssey. I went back to Origins. So I'm one of the new fans. So if y'all are old school Assassin's Creed fans, I know I'm one of those guys you hate. I understand. But I literally am in love with the Norse setting. Mm-hmm. And you injecting Assassin's Creed into a Norse setting, this is such a Jabrel game, like, I swear. And watching this trailer, like, I had goosebumps everywhere, where I was like, I cannot believe this is happening. Like, finally, a setting that really, really resonates with me. Now, I love ancient Greece and like the Renaissance Italy and all the different places they've gone so far. I think have been really cool. Victorian England and stuff like that. But man, they're like, especially coming off of like God of War, how much that showed how awesome Norse mythology can be. And then on top of that, Hellblade doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You throw in Assassin's Creed finally being able to really explore a Norse environment and how awesome the Vikings were, and the fact that it looks like they're taking some like creative liberties in terms of playing with like showing the Vikings how maybe they actually were, instead of just, you know, kind of pillaging and killing people. There was another side of things where these were regular people who lived real lives, who really tried to make the best life they could for themselves. I think that's a really kind of interesting approach that I don't think too many pieces of media have ever explored before. Not to mention, if you guys haven't watched the trailer, go there now and watch this. The hidden blade coming back, like, oh my god. So it looks like there's some kind of head nod to the older school fans, like, hey guys, we're not ignoring you guys completely, and we understand you had some problems with Origins and Odyssey and the direction they went, and specifically Odyssey. It looks like they're going to probably address some of those issues. Not to mention, there's been some statements that they've released that they're going to try to make it less grindy than Odyssey. Which means that it looks like they're going to try their very best to keep on the trajectory they're going on, because, again, Odyssey was incredibly successful for them. So I don't think ever going back to original Assassin's Creed is ever going to happen. Unfortunately for the original fans, I don't think that's going to happen. However, I think they're definitely going to try to fix some of the stuff that put off people, so they can please as many people as realistically possible. But what are you feeling about the AC Valhalla?
So I was super excited for this. So we're, you know, for those who didn't see, you know, they did this really cool kind of team up with Boss Logic, which is great. Artist, I love his work.
Awesome artist.
Oh, he's so good. So they did that live stream where pretty much they started with a blank slate, and he was slowly painting the setting and the male character. Well, at the time we didn't know. I was under the guessing that he was going to do a female main character, but which they did confirm now you can do that. Of course,
so it's going to keep the choice from like Odyssey.
Yeah, I don't know why people thought that would go away. So that was really cool, and as soon as he started drawing some of the ships in and stuff like that, and the castle and the destroyed castle with the Vikings, I was just super on board, because I do love the Norse mythology, and it's such a different aspect, because we're like, in God of War, you were actually playing the mythology.
Yeah.
Now, this is a world that believes in that mythology, it's so interesting and cool to say that. It's like, oh, what's the comparison? It's like, well, no, that is the mythology, and in a sense you can be like, no, this is based in this world, that mythology exists, which is just so cool. The weapons, like, when I was watching that trailer, I was like, man, I hope I can throw an axe at someone, and immediately he just whoosh, and you see someone just get the axe to the face. Oh,
at one point.
Oh my goodness, I was like, this is so cool, and I'm like, this is so cool. And I'm a, I guess, original Assassin's Creed fan. I really love those original classic games. I'm very accepting of where the series went. Origins wasn't really my thing. Odyssey really reeled me in. And obviously with this trailer, I went and installed Odyssey again and was playing it. I think this Assassin's Creed is showing to be everything people wanted. People who want the old classic Assassin's Creed game, what you got from those games are still here in an aspect, except for, I guess, Desmond's story, which ended so long ago. You know, there's more games, I think, without Desmond and his bloodline than it is with him. So I'm not sure why those.
Easily by this point, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why there's such a still, like, dying for that aspect when the games are, hands down better. You know, like Odyssey had really good storytelling. Origins even had some good cutscenes, and some of the story, the way they told the story was really there. You know, Odyssey did very much depart from like the actual Assassins like mythos thing, with just not even having the hidden blade for so long and stuff like that, and hiding some of that stuff behind DLC walls. But you know, Black Flag is the first one, which is Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, which really took a departure and left the whole Templar versus Assassins thing. And I know it's still there underlying, and it's really intertwined. I'm just confused why people are so hurt that it's like, oh, it's not really Assassin's Creed anymore. Why wasn't this game just called Valhalla? I'm like, I don't want this to be. It's because it shows what you expect from gameplay mechanics and stuff like that, and they're bringing so much new stuff where they're like, yeah, you can pillage villages and stuff, but then you can like settle there and build like a village and your own ecosystem kind of working to an extent. They haven't shown it, but they have discussed so much of it. This game has everything I want from it. I can't wait. I'm obviously gonna probably pre-order this as soon as I mean, I think the pre-orders are live. I'm not gonna pay for it right now, but
oh yeah, you best believe I already pre-ordered it.
Yeah. So it's gonna be great. The Norse setting, the Viking stuff is great. Having the character choice between male and female is there for whoever wants it. Because in watching that boss logic thing, the comment section was of course toxic with, oh, I hope there's no females, and vice versa. I hope it's only female, and I hope it's this and this. I'm like, guys, it's gonna be, in my heart, I was like, it's either gonna be you have the option again, or I was like, they're gonna go all the way. And because of how much like Cassandra was really the icon of Odyssey, even though there's like a percentage where it was like more people picked Alexios for some reason, you had a weaker story if you picked Alexios. The way they did it with Cassandra just was a little bit better. I thought they were going to go full in female protagonist, but I'm okay with the option. They're saying they're both canon, so I don't know how that works, if they're probably just constantly in the cuts. You know, they're both canon in Odyssey actually, because the other one appears, to avoid spoiler, the other one appears.
Yeah, if they want to make them both canon, I suppose what they can do is get rid of that kind of like rival mechanism that Odyssey had.
Yeah.
Where like Cassandra and Alexios both existed in this universe, kind of going against each other. And if you just remove that dynamic and instead have like a Mass Effect style approach, where femshep versus maleshep, I think that's probably how they're going to do it, is that they're going to take away the narrative tying to the genders, and instead literally just allow you to inject yourself into one avatar or another and kind of experience it how you want to experience it. Romances are very fluid in the modern Assassin's Creed games, so I guess that's probably how they're going to attach it, where it's like whether you play as a male version or the female version, you can kind of go whatever direction you want to get, and you don't get any more or less of a experience to basically try to please both sides. Because I guess if you put too much weight on the female side, people who want to play as a male feel like you're kind of forcing their hands, forcing them into one direction. But if you remove that, and it's like, listen, you could romance whoever you want, you could see every cutscene the way you want, you could play the way you want, no matter who you choose, I feel like that kind of appeases both sides. Where it's like, if you want to play as a female, you can play as a female. If you want to play as a male, you want to play as a male. No matter what direction you get the full experience. And I think that's the smart way to do it. Because the moment you start putting too much story into one side versus the other, you're starting to kind of cut off the legs of the people who want to play the other character. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And so I think this game's going to be successful. I see it. Unless there's some weird like game-breaking bug. I don't see why this game looks like it's going to nail on everything. And we're only going to see more of it as we get closer to its release. And it's gonna be great, and obviously probably releasing very close. I know it is coming until like next gen consoles. Hopefully it's at the point where I don't have to wait too long and I can get it on
holiday 2020.
Holiday 2020, and it said PS4, PS5, Xbox Series, awesome. Stadia, and all that kind of stuff. So it's gonna be exciting. I'm super excited to see that.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I'm so excited about this game, and in my opinion, for my taste, what I like in games, I feel like these games are getting better and better for me. However, like, I do want to say that I am sympathetic for the people who were there with the original Assassin's Creed and played with every single one. And I know it's difficult to kind of like fall in love with something and really get invested and put money towards and put years of your life towards, especially during your formative years and your early teen years, where like this and for many people was like part of their upraising. And then for it to change so fundamentally and kind of play towards an entire different base, I know could be difficult for people, but I think also people need to understand the fact that with time, things evolve, and the game industry is not what it used to be. People are not necessarily looking for the same thing. And I mean, if you want to be completely honest and frank with things, the old style wasn't doing the franchise any favors. It wasn't performing well anymore, to be honest. And not until they reinvented it and went towards the bigger RPG thing, the game exploded in sales. And it's more popular than ever. And so the unfortunate reality for a lot of these people is the people who want that kind of old school linear Assassin's Creed approach, though I am sympathetic for you guys, you're kind of a vocal minority at this point. And so it's like, I am sympathetic to these people and I don't want to dismiss them as in like, you're stupid for wanting that. But at the same time, I think people need to understand that like this franchise is bigger than it's ever been now in terms of like player count level. And you got to do what's viable for your franchise. And it would be awesome if they like doubled down on the Ezio thing and were being like, okay, this is what Assassin's Creed and will always be, and we're not diverting from that. But would you rather Assassin's Creed be dead? Because that's what it would be at this point. Because the whole, and I don't want to be dismissive of what they did in the past. That what they did in 07 is not going to cut it in 2020.
No, absolutely not. Because you have to realize the game industry is moving ahead, and games are going to do what it's doing better. Like, you know, if you play the original Assassin's Creed game, you can pretty much beat everyone within like 25 hours.
Pretty easily, yeah.
Doing some side missions. You know, people put 80 hours, 120 hours into Odyssey.
Easily.
You did what, 75, 80 hours?
Yeah, just under 80, yeah.
You know, it's an incredible feature to have someone keep playing your game for that long, to be invested in the DLC, and you know, that's why they stopped doing the quick yearly Assassin's Creed games, because they didn't have the time to, and I know they had different studios like a la Call of Duty and stuff like that, but the games were very samey because no one could take a chance, and the games were very similar, and it's like, oh, okay, you could beat for beat, guess what's going on. Creating a true open world and a reason to explore is where the game is going to go, and I think fits the new style of Assassin's Creed. The old games are still there, you know. If you want the Ezio trilogy, go play. Even the Ezio trilogy, the last game in the Ezio trilogy was very underwhelming. And 3, I have a whole mess of problems with, even though that wasn't in the original style. These games, I was able to fall in, as a diehard original Assassin's Creed fan, I was able to re-fall in love with the series thanks to a little bit of Origins, but mainly Odyssey. So, which is why I'm even just more hyped for Valhalla. Alright, so going on to the next story, or the final story for the day, because again, like we said, it's a little bit of a longer episode with so much, and something that kind of came out of nowhere and has a big things. So Jeff Keighley, more known for the Game Awards and his presence at E3, has unveiled the Summer Game Fest, a 4-month-long all-digital consumer celebration of video games featuring breaking news, in-game events, and free playable content. Companies that are going to be present and are working with them, which is pretty much everyone. 2K, Activision, Bandai Namco, Bethesda, Blizzard, Bungie, CD Projekt Red, Digital Extremes, EA, Microsoft, Sony, Square Enix, Private Division, Riot Games, Steam, Warner Brothers. Those are all the companies that have been confirmed to be involved, and the official announcement says additional publishers will be revealed in the upcoming weeks. When I saw this, immediately in my brain, I was like, goodbye E3.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because not only was Jeff Keighley such a big part of E3, and he said that he wasn't going to be there, and E3 was going to transform to be a different thing, having a 4-month-long saga of like E3, quote unquote, is incredible. To have all these companies prepared to be like, it's going to be, you're probably going to have a schedule and be like, look, at this time, these guys are going to go and show. This is really going to be the replacement. And the fact that it's an all-digital event, no one's going to feel left out. People aren't going to be like, oh, man, look at all these people. I wish I was able to go to E3, but due to financial issues, no, you're going to be in the majority. Some people probably will be at some locations, but for the majority, you'll be able to connect with people online and watch this, live stream it. People are going to be able to comment, and we'll probably comment on a lot of that information. People are going to be live streaming. Kind of Funny is usually pretty quick to be live streaming that stuff while it's premiering. And these are just, when I saw the companies, I'm like, oh man, I wonder, because Jeff Keighley is a big proponent of small developers and indies. I'm like, is this more like an indie kind of thing? No, you have literally everyone is there. to have announcements from small games to big games, and there's probably going to be smaller indie titles and more companies involved. I'm super excited for this. I think it's great. I think it's going to be exciting to see so many titles and many of these companies probably having the freedom to show what they want to show in the way they want to show it.
Yeah, and I guess it makes Jeff Keighley withdrawing from E3 make all the more sense, is that they were obviously building something way bigger.
Yeah.
And in E3's absence, so rises the Summer Game Fest, I guess. And since this is the first one, it remains to be seen whether this is going to be a real official replacement. It remains to be seen. Mm-hmm. Because, again, until we see this as an established property, it's preemptive to say that this is going to be the industry staple from now on. But, I mean, just looking at the names, that's pretty much almost everybody of like, major worth. Yeah, I mean, hey, if they get Nintendo involved in some capacity, and maybe Devolver Digital, for example, to do the indie side of it, I mean, that E3's got nothing. That's it. All the major, so whatever online thing that E3 would try to pull for next year. I mean, I kind of feel like that's the end of that. So yeah, man, the Summer Game Fest, I'm looking forward to it. We got some big names here. We got some different people like WB. I'm really excited to see what they got, because you would imagine that's eventually going to be some kind of Batman game. And most of all, that's probably going to be the Harry Potter game that they've been talking about for some time. Yeah. So, I mean, you got some big names here. Who knows? Square Enix might be talking some stuff about Final Fantasy VII stuff, maybe. Sony's got their big stuff to do. Microsoft's going to have Xbox Series X. EA's always got new stuff to go. CD Projekt Red's going to have Cyberpunk stuff. Bungie, I would imagine, could have some more major Destiny expansions. Who knows? Maybe even freaking Destiny 3 for all we know. Blizzard always got big thing. Bethesda, Starfield, maybe? I don't know. But again, we don't know what our expectations should be, whether it should be big and bold E3 level stuff, or is this going to be more smaller, like Connect style stuff? I don't know. But I'm really excited to see what Jeff Keighley does. I got to give this guy all the credit in the world. Like, what he's done for the game industry these past few years is nothing short of incredible. The fact that in many ways he represents a lot of gaming's past, especially with, he was a big part of G4, and he's been in the game industry for a long freaking time. And then he gets involved with the Game Awards and takes like an old format of, award shows and finds a way to bring it into the modern age. And now basically finding a way to take an E3 style presentation and bring that into the new era. Like, it's really impressive what he's so able to kind of adapt to what the game industry is and find ways to take old formats and have new applications for that. I got to give that guy credit, man. Whenever people try to write him out, he finds a way to basically introduce something brand new and transformative to the game industry. So shout out to him.
Yeah, he puts in the work, and like, if anything, we see the way he took like the Game Awards, which at first people were very down on because they're like, this is not the Oscars. Movies and games deserve to be rated differently. And he did it. He transformed the Games Awards into something serious. And, to a variety of events, sometimes the Game Awards are really good. Sometimes they're a little bit lackluster, and they're, different issues. And so, this summer of games probably won't be the final nail into E3, but it'll quickly be the new E3 with, parentheses, because I don't really know how to describe that. Because this is going to take place. I do think the length of it seems weird, where it's like, instead of choosing like, this is a month where we're just going to be packed with announcements, a 4 months is a 4 month stretch. I don't know what that even means, because it's going to start in the summer. It's going to be practically fall when it's over. And how are they going to like slow drip us? Is it just a every weekend thing? So that's all still to be seen. But again, he has the backing of such big companies. Like you were saying, WB's been teasing that Batman game for what seems forever, and you got to assume was supposed to be announced by now. This Corona thing probably threw it out of whack. All these other companies, these are big hitters. More to be, revealed. I'm sure he's reached out to Nintendo, and they're kind of weird where they're kind of talking about how like their summer Direct is delayed and not coming and going to be reworked. I kind of see the tea leaves where they'll probably connect into this, because they're usually at the Game Awards in an aspect. Like when Reggie was still at Nintendo, he was there at one of the Game Awards. So there is
some
work
sort of relationship. Yeah.
So and that's a big name. and Nintendo, you don't want to be not in the conversation when everyone's talking about all these other guys, especially Microsoft and Sony. Like, these are all, you don't want to be left out of the conversation with, with your games just not even shown for so long. So I'm excited for this. Again, the time aspect is my really only concern, the 4-month long thing. But I guess until we see the form factor, the schedule, we won't really know what it looks like. But, the industry's changing. It's more about getting this information directly to people to be able to watch your streams, to watch your favorite influencers and people discuss, people you trust into their reviews, what they're excited for, gets you excited for. And the world in a, such a weird spot where this summer is going to be an awkward summer where people are still going to be fencing, like trying to interact with other people and actually be in the same room with them. To be able to watch the same thing as them and then discuss it is going to be great. Like, you and I would probably be recording in the same place by this time this all happens.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
because I'm at the point where I can't stand being in these four walls anymore.
Oh,
so it'll be exciting to see that. It'll be exciting to fanboy over brand new things. From these big hitters. Bethesda's. There's some of these guys who really need to recover from things they've done. Bethesda, Blizzard, Bungie's in a good spot. Riot Games in a sense. These are companies that do need to kind of recover from some bad conferences, bad press, bad gaming mechanics things they've done. It's interesting that Blizzard and Bungie are both there, even though they just had kind of a falling out with Activision and all that.
Yeah.
That was kind of funny. But again, because it's an all-digital event, it's not like all these people are going to be in the same house. So I'm excited for this. I can only see positive things, hopefully, coming from that. And to wrap it up, that I'm excited for. I'm excited to see this, the new testing. It's going to be exciting to see how they lay everything out and how the size of the announcements is what I'm really excited to see. Like, big games, small features. What do they have in store for us? Because that's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I mean, we'll keep you guys posted, and this is pretty much the next 4 months of our life, and we've never had kind of like a quarter of a year length event, so we have no standard of comparisons for this. So we'll keep you guys posted as we figure out things, because we've never really seen anything like this before in the game industry, at least. Mm-hmm. So I guess you guys understand now why we didn't have a loose topic, because we're well over an hour now on just a topic-based thing. We basically had, 2 weeks worth of, slow news, and then all of a sudden, everything at once.
As everything was unfolding throughout the week, I'm like, oh man, this is going to be a good episode to record. And, it lined up with a personal, obviously, for people, I don't know if my video will be in the video, I'm in a new place, and it's such been a packed weekend, but I was like, I can't miss this. I can't miss this week. I was like, this is so much good information to discuss. And I was so excited to just discuss all, because you and I haven't really talked too much about Valhalla. Oh, I purposely didn't ask you, because I knew you saw it, but I was like, I purposely didn't want to ask you because I wanted to hear you just kind of go on a rant and just discuss how much you love Valhalla, the reveal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you didn't, because I would have just offloaded, because any opportunity to talk about that, I'm going to, because again, there's only so often do I see a game where I'm just like, I know it's not for me, but it's for me, if you know what I'm saying. Exactly. The last one was probably that Yacht Club game announcement that they showed, that Ninja Gaiden-esque game, and I was like, oh, that they know who that's for. That's for me. So. And again, the next game, listen, when they inevitably make the Final Fantasy VI Remake, that's when you guys will know that I'll probably need to be resuscitated. But until then, I'll be all right. I'm excited about this Assassin's Creed. Hopefully the news stays like this. I like these kind of shows. I don't want it to go back to the drip feed. Cooking Mama Cookstar is a cute story, but I'm going to need more heat than that.
Yeah, for sure. We can't just rely on that.
All right, guys, so episode 14 of the NeoVintage podcast. I hope you guys had a good time, and be sure to keep your eyes out for not only our spoiler cast that will be up right after this one, but also episode 15 that will be coming out next week. I am Jabrel, and I'm with
Steve.
Until next time, this is the NeoVintage podcast. Bye, guys.